So, what was it about this project? Was it specifically the character that was pitched to you, or was it the concept of the show which was the biggest hook for you to be a part of it?
Awesome question. First and foremost, when I read, my agent said, "Sarah, you have to read for this part." I saw the cover of the comic book, and "It is you" was the first thing he said to me. And so then I looked at it, and I was like, all right, it's actually, all right, I'll take it. You know, like I can see it. But then I read the script, and the story was so intriguing. I haven't seen a script like this for sci-fi since Battlestar Galactica. I was so jazzed because I was like, ooh, the story's just as meaty and good as those characters. Like, I'm a huge Starbuck fan, and so I was like, okay, all right, like I could get behind this. And then when I started to look at some of the comic books that Peter Hogan wrote and started to get a little bit more into Asta before like going in for the audition, I realized we are very similar. We have just a similar background of, you know, having to deal with a lot of different things in our lifetime and not being able to trust people, feeling a little bit like an outsider, just a mixed bag of emotions. And so it just felt really familiar and really like, I don't know, kismet. There was a synergy to the way that the story was. And I went in for my one audition and I booked it. Like, it was like, boom. It just felt, you know, it just felt right. Yeah. Congratulations. Thank you. Anyone?
What's it like having to react to some of the weird stuff that
he's doing?
that Harry does?
That's a great question. I kind of love knowing that Asta is the audience perspective. So I like being able to give the audience what I think they're probably feeling a little bit too, which is, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, what is going on right now? You know, imagine a guy coming in and like holding, you know, body parts and sniffing it and looking at it, you being like, is this his method? Or, because you don't want to question him too much, but you also are like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but at the same time, what are you doing? So I think it's really fun to play with him. He and I have a really great chemistry on set, playing off of each other and just winging it and seeing how we feel. And he'll throw things at me, and my reactions are very real because I don't know what he's going to do from one take to the next, which is great.
What are some of the challenges that you face playing Asta? And even conversely, what are some of the things that you learned about some of this project?
Some of the challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges that I talked about with Chris Sheridan, the writer, was when it comes to domestic violence and an abusive relationship. I really didn't want to be seen as a meek little mouse. I didn't want to be seen as, oh, a man can just beat me up and I just stay with him. Like, I really wanted to tell a story about two people who love each other, who have become toxic for each other, and who are both aggressive, and who both don't know how to leave. And it was really important for me, and I talked about this with Chris, like, I want to show that it's hard to leave when you really do have a lot of love for somebody, no matter how toxic it is. So I think they did a really great job of capturing that in the pilot in the small amount of time we had. I think you'll get to see a little bit more of my relationship with Jimmy throughout the season. Or the lack thereof of our relationship. But that to me was probably the biggest challenge. And then to answer your second question, the thing that I loved, I think, the most about jumping into Asta was how direct and forward she is. She doesn't really care what you think of her, and there's such liberation in that. I think there's a big part of me that feels that way too, but I don't take as many liberties as she does, and so that's really, really rewarding. You know? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
How does the relationship grow between her and Harry? Because they definitely have that connection.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird synergy between them. I think there's a respect that they acquire over time. You know, without saying too much about where their relationship is headed, I definitely think it's familial. I definitely think it's more about respect and friendship than anything else. And I think she really understands that he's an outsider, and without knowing that he's an alien, and I don't know if she'll find out or not, like, I think she understands what it feels like to be that way, and so I think they end up being really good friends. I don't know what he's going to do, if he's going to actually obliterate Earth or whatever, but I know that, like, I change his mind about humanity. Like, I start to, like, get to him, you know, and I think you can even see it at the end of the pilot. You can see his face kind of changing. Like, I don't really want to kill her, you know. So you see.
On that, how, like, obviously you can't spoil it, but how do you think Asta would react finding out that Harry's kind of also the villain of the series?
I feel like she would be like, yeah, that's what I thought. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like she would be like, I knew there was something fucked up about you, you know? Like, but then also, I think she would immediately be on alert. And when you're a woman on alert around a man that you think is dangerous, you don't show it. But you know that, like, you need to watch their every move. So I think if she does find out, it will change the trust element. And that will be definitely something they're going to have to work through.
And do you think she could with, like, in her relationship with Jimmy?
I think because of her relationship with Jimmy, she'll be even more on alert, and she won't take any of his bullshit. And I think that it will cause her to pause and consider whether or not she wants to continue being at all remotely close to this person, thing, entity, whatever, you know. We'll see what happens. But that's how I feel like she would react, thinking it. Anyone?
You also, sorry, the writers get to work in some of your native heritage into the pilot.
Yeah.
What do you hope they work in moving forward, and what's it like, having that kind of representation in a show?
Yeah. This was a big topic for us. It's really important to me and to Chris and to the writers of the show that we are respectful to the Native American community. Asta in the comic book is Native American and Hawaiian. I am not Hawaiian, and so at the very beginning of this process, I said, I do not want to be something that I'm not, and I would really love to make her what I am. And I have Native heritage, but I'm not a citizen, so I'm a mix of a lot of things, and I think it's important that we show that she's a mix of a lot of things and that she's still trying to find her place in this world, and that the Native American community has been a home to her that she understands and pulls from spiritually and mentally, but she's still not sure who she is, which is part of why she feels like an outsider, which is why she relates so much to an outsider. But as far as them being so respectful to my personal background, to the Native American community, and to Asta's overall creative arc, I was just beyond thrilled and very emotional when we had those conversations. Because it's really important. I feel like it's really easy nowadays to have a box to check, and Asta and I don't have a box to check. We're an other. When I vote, I don't know what to say, because I'm not just one thing. And I feel like that's really relatable right now. I think there's a lot of people who don't have a box to check. And I think both Harry and Asta fulfill that, like, relatability for people, and I think that that's going to be something that's going to be really good for us to explore down the line in conversation. But I'm really excited about it. They were very respectful when handling my background.
I'm curious, just from a professional side of things, like, how was that experience for the rest of the cast? Being behind the scenes, kind of working against them, playing against each other. Even if you have, like, maybe a funny story.
I do.
Oh, here we go.
Well, so Kate, who is the mayor's wife, she's my best friend. in real life. I've known her for a very long time, and she was in my living room when she got the audition for the show, and we were like, like, okay, they're just cool, you know. She was perfect for the part. She went in, she crushed it, she got it all on her own, and we had a dream come true when it came to her booking it and me booking it. And she lives in New York and I live in LA, and all this time back in the day we used to say, like, one day we're going to take over the world. From New York to LA, they'll know us, you know. Like, and like now they will. So on set, her being there with me was so awesome. As a woman, to have someone you know in your trust circle, like everyone else is doing their job, touching you up and doing their things, but if I could look across the way at Meredith and she could look at me, I could be like, I got you, and she's got me, and it was awesome. And then as far as the rest of the cast, it felt instantly familial. Like,
It's a connection.
yes, the synergy, yes. Chris did a really great job of introducing all of us through email. When we first started, like, I got cast first, and then I think Corey was second, and he would, as people came on, he'd be like, Sarah, meet Corey, Corey, meet Elvie, meet Alan, you know? And we started a group text that we still do to this day, where it's constant, you know, making fun of each other. And we use Alan Tudyk memes a lot. You know? Like
There's some good
Firefly and things come up. He likes to put stickers on people's things, and so on set, there's a buzz. There's like a magic feeling of like we've always known each other, and we really just met a year ago. So, since we filmed a year ago, it's amazing that it's kind of taken a minute just to get back to it, and I feel like we still have such an amazing chemistry. I'm so excited to see what happens this coming winter, because we'll finally be together, you know, and like not leaving each other. Like, we're really excited.
All right, guys. I'm sorry. I hate to say we're gonna have to switch our rotation.
No, it was great. It was awesome to meet all of you. Thank you.
So, Alan,
Yes.
all of the fantastic genre of projects you've been involved with up to this point, what was the special ingredient about this genre project coming across your desk that stood out from maybe other ones you've been pitched around this time?
Right.
Just felt special.
I love the potential of him learning in a world that's foreign to him. Everything, you know, from speech to movement, and we'll get to see some of that. You know, his learning slowly how just to walk. It's going to be that's exciting, very exciting to me to get to do bad walking, like, terrible sitting down. Like, just give me a chair and turn on the camera, and he can't sit down yet. Try to sit down and be bad at it. That is just thrilling to me. So that playing the fish out of water character in this world is something I'm really looking forward to. And it's such a cool world. That was great. Did y'all get to see it just now? Did y'all get to watch it? Yeah,
I did, yeah.
I'm really struck about how it's not a simple world. You know, the people have dimension. The other characters have so much dimension. And reading forward, as I've had the benefit of doing, because we're going to have all of our scripts written before we start shooting for the season. Every character has their own arc going on in the story, and it continues that way. It's amazing. Everybody is invested in, so you can. It's not a flimsy story. It has depth, and getting to be the character in the middle of it, who is the one watching and reacting to everything, is I feel really fortunate.
Would you say that he's actually as smart as he thinks he is? That he's really smarter than all the people, or not so much?
Not so much. Yeah, he might be. No, he's absolutely not. I think that's one of the things that's endearing, is that he's dumb. Where he just makes mistakes, you know. He thinks he's so smart, but he tries to give her a compliment and says, "Pandas eat their babies." So that's his. Everything's gonna be fine. You know, I didn't mean to call you a lizard. That's how he says. That's how he tries to be nice. So he's pretty stupid, and I like playing stupid characters.
Will we get to see a little bit more of how his world is different than ours?
I don't know. He starts to talk. I know I talk about it some where I am right now, and so we'll get, I guess, more into that. Yeah, probably.
So you're kind of the protagonist and the villain almost at the same time. What's that like, having to kind of balance that and be likable but also destroy?
Right. It's an interesting thing. It works when we watch it. But when we were shooting, I was like, so I'm going to go kill the kid now. Like it's go kill the little boy.
All good decisions on whiskey.
Yeah, on whiskey. That helped. The humor really takes the edge off of it. And then he flips him off at the end. He's just as much a child as he is. And their relationship is one of my favorites in the script. It gets bigger. It's great. It's a great opportunity. I love movies where the person at the center of the movies, and I guess shows where the person at the center are kind of despicable people. You could make the argument that they're a terrible person, and yet you kind of root for them. And I think that Chris has written a really great character like that. And I'm really glad to get to play him.
This show is based on the Dark Horse comics.
Right.
How much of the series will be paralleling the comics storyline and character arcs, or is it kind of going into a different direction, just loosely basing it on the comic book itself?
I think it's loosely based. It is loosely based. There are definitely things and characters that are the same and have the same backstory, but moving forward, they take those stories into a different direction. The comic does more of it buttons things up fairly nicely, whereas there's very long like the death of the doctor that we have in the pilot episode. I think in the comics that gets resolved by the second comic or something. So that's going to be something that takes the season to hopefully get to the bottom of. So that's where those are the changes that have been made. It isn't changing the world so much. It'll be like change the location, but it doesn't change what the world is. It just makes it an insular, feeling in the mountains of Colorado, but stretching things out in a storytelling way that fits this mode of storytelling better than a comic.
You've had a pretty storied history in your professional career, and that being said, even things that we love sometimes feel like a chore. How do you maintain your passion?
Right? I just did a play. That was great. That's how I used to do it, and I just did it again. I just did a play for the first time in a while, and it really woke up a whole lot in me. Wow, this whole putting on a show feeling that you don't feel when you're doing TV and movies. Of full-on putting on a show, like there's a show tonight, and you put it on. There are people backstage, and you hand something off, and somebody hands you a thing. You turn around, grab a drink of water, walk back on, and now you're a new character. And then how's the house? All of that stuff. What's the audience like tonight? All of that. It woke up the thrill of performing in it's when I first saw it out when I was a young person, getting into acting. But this show is fantastic. There's collaboration in this, and to have a character that has so much playfulness in it, that there's so much room to play with inside of it. That's why I keep saying I feel so lucky to get to do this. I really do, to get to play the guy, to play Harry. There's when we're going to see him trying to learn to put on a tie, and his flawed thinking. He's killed him. He's got to get that body. And the body looks like him. Nobody can find this body. It really gives away the game. That's something that's hanging out there that we start to deal with pretty quickly. Meanwhile, I'm getting close to people, and I'm odd, but how long can that go on? Like, who's going to figure it out? Is somebody going to figure it out? It's and Chris does a great job of putting different balls in the air. Like, he doesn't make it easy for himself or for the characters, which is fantastic. It's tough watching shows sometimes where you see the writing give themselves a break, and you're like, yeah, I guess you can kind of say that. The logic gets bent a little bit, but he keeps throwing more problems in front of these guys, like who the guy is that my alien took over. He had a life, and that comes knocking at some point, and he's got to deal with that too, and he doesn't know anything about it. Like, oh, huh? And yeah, there's a lot of things.
Did you try to contribute to the script? Sometimes in collaborative projects, people kind of chime in and they made big tweaks.
Right. A little, only in contributing to my character. An actor, and the way an actor looks at a script is different from how a writer looks at a script. Once you put on the character what the character wants, you're following different things in the story when you're following only one story. So I'll find things and I'll say, wait a second, I said this here, and then 6 pages later I say this. It's usually subtle differences. They're usually subtle differences in phrasing of something that maintains a truth throughout. So he's open to that, and then also I can say, look, there's a punchline here, it's an obvious joke, and there's a payoff here. I've got 3 pitches on that payoff. Can I say this? Can I say this? Can I say this? And then he's way open to that. And you saw it in the pilot, the beatbox thing with the sheriff and his deputy. That was not in the script. And that was not in the script at all. That was something that they were like, oh, you can do that? That's great. Well, we have to put it in the show then. Really? And it is so part of the character of the show. Like, when I watched it, I'm like, if I wasn't in the show, that moment, I would have to watch this show from this point on to see those types of oddball things. So I'm sure it's going to continue to be encouraged to find our own eccentricities, how they can exercise within the characters.
How did you prepare for this one?
I read a book called Community. That didn't really do much for me, although it does make me believe in aliens. If you know this book, aliens are real. Okay, so just know that. You can read a book called Community. It's tough to get, but aliens are real. And then just trying to figure out how to move, how to talk, how to walk, how aware is he? How good is he at pretending to be a human? Finding that line to where he's not too Starman. Remember Starman with Jeff Bridges? It was so uncomfortable watching him. He was so true to a being that's using a human body as a machine. Inhale now, exhale now. I just wanted to get a lozenge or something the entire movie. So I didn't want to go too Starman. But I didn't want him just to be suddenly really good at being human.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it seemed like a cheat. So it was just working with our director and Chris to find what that about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Hello.
How's it going?
Talk to you about a song.
Oh, a song? Okay.
It's not right. No, not right this minute. But
Okay, we'll talk about a song. Okay. Apparently Peter doesn't like one of the songs. That's okay. No, I'm kidding.
How would you say that you find the balance between a really light, playful, funny feel in the pilot versus the arc overall with dramedy? Does it stay that light? Does it
I would
come
say
in and out?
no. I would say it's the balance in the pilot. Does it stay the same throughout?
Yeah.
Question. Yeah, it does. I would say if anything, it might tend a tad bit funnier as it goes forward. But we'll see. I know that sci-fi really likes the fact that it's funny, and they want to lean into that more. But I also don't want to lose sort of those deep, sort of emotional connections, because I think that's another thing that pulls people in. And I think if you're just doing a comedy, then I think the show would start feeling like other things, and I think it's the balance that makes it feel a little bit different. So it's going to stay pretty consistent throughout. It might be a tad bit funnier, and I think it's going to, even with the same balance, I think it's going to end up playing funnier as time goes on, because once the audience gets to know the characters a little more, like any comedy, you know, in the 8th year of Friends, anything they said, people are laughing at, because, you know, Joey says something stupid and Chandler's standing there. You can just picture what they're going to do next. You know, there's going to be a scenario where Harry says something and Sheriff Mike's in the room, and you know that Sheriff Mike's going to have a reaction to it, and you're ahead of it, and you start laughing. So I think the more the audience gets to know the characters, the more fun it's going to be anyway.
What brought you to the project? Like, what about it?
I love the comics. I think Peter Hogan and Steve Parkhouse did an amazing job with that. I love the humanity of Harry. I love the fish out of water aspect of it, and I love that he doesn't belong there, but he's trying to fit in. And it feels, and I kept that in mind writing, and there's so much about it, we were talking about it last night, that even though it's about an alien, it's the wonderful thing about science fiction, that even though it's about an alien who crashes here, in some ways it's really just an immigrant story. I mean, it could just be a story about an immigrant who moves to America and tries to fit in, and because they want to belong somewhere, and that's what Harry's whole thing is, you know. One of our writers on staff, this great writer named Nasrin Dubai, who's Iranian and came from Iran to Montreal when she was a kid, said when they got to Montreal, the way they learned to speak English was watching TV. And so she really related to Harry watching Law and Order to speak English. But I think that is one of the biggest things that makes it so relatable to me, to other people, is his journey, his sort of human journey, even though he's not human. Yeah.
Science fiction has always been great at reflecting social commentary for all these kind of things. What were the science fiction stories, be they movie or comic book or TV, for both of you, when you were kids growing up, that really spoke to you as to having that effect?
That's a great question.
I've always loved science fiction, so I've been influenced by everything from John Wyndham and Ray Bradbury through Roger Zelazny, Ursula Le Guin, you know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, people ask me a lot about things that might have influenced Resident Alien, and the two I always mention are it's probably a mixture in my head of The Man Who Fell to Earth and My Favorite Martian. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was a huge Twilight Zone fan growing up. Ray Bradbury, Illustrated Man. I mean, I loved all that stuff growing up. And then I got caught up in other things, and it was this comic that made me sort of remind myself how much I love the science fiction genre and sort of get back into it. But now, and then in doing it, and now rewatching the Twilight Zones again, and just like being a kid again, I love the genre.
In the creation process, particularly with things like this where there's source material, lots of times it's very difficult to balance between originality and staying true.
Yeah.
So how did you guys go about that?
Well, it was hard. I mean, I just met Peter last night for the first time. I was terrified going through it of what Peter would think of it. I love the comics, but I also knew I had to change them because it's TV, you know, and if there's any chance that this had it getting picked up, I knew what it needed. I've been in TV for 27 years now, and I knew what the show needed for it, and I knew with that, I knew I had to make some changes from the comic. And I was afraid of what Peter would think. So I wrote the script, and I tried to be really true to the sense of Harry and the humanity in him. And as many of the other elements as I could pull, I tried to pull. And we pulled a lot. I mean, a lot of the storylines in the first season are from those first comics, and a lot of the characters are from that. But ultimately, you have to make a decision, and the goal is to sort of make the best TV show and be respectful of the comic. So I was relieved to find out that Peter was finally okay with it. He was the one person I really cared about pleasing.
I was going to say, how did you feel when you saw certain things being tweaked or changed? Whoa!
I was very nervous the first time I sat down to watch the pilot, and after about 10 minutes I sort of started to relax and enjoy it, and ultimately, Chris has done his own thing with it, but I think it's, you get a sense of Harry as being the hero, the good guy, and I think the end result was very enjoyable. Which is probably it's probably partly Chris and partly Alan, but it works. So I'm not going to.
And what is your relationship with the comics now? Is that?
It's strange. Having seen the pilot, I have to kind of like put the pilot out of my head in order to finish doing what I'm doing. But you know, it's a bit like the George R.R. Martin quote, you know, of like there are the TV shows and there's the books, and you know, some people will like one, not the other, and blah, blah, but you can all argue about it on the internet because that's what the internet's for. Yeah. So.
What's the most difficult thing you guys think will be from the most difficult moment for to translate from the comics to television, or the most awkward kind of thing to bring from the comics?
It's a good question. I mean, if it's really difficult or awkward, I probably won't bring it from the comics. But I'm trying to think if there's something that's difficult or awkward that I brought, even though it was awkward.
Maybe you're just that good.
No. I mean, no. I mean, you know, I don't know if this equates. I mean, Harry himself was a difficult, awkward. It would have been easier in many ways if I could have done Harry the way Peter did Harry in the comic and have Harry look like an alien. That was a difficult decision, and I don't think I had a choice. But it's the logic of it is a little bit awkward, you know. It was very clean the way it was in the comic,
But the advantage of doing it the way I did it in the comic, where you see him as an alien all the time, is you've got an alien on every page.
Right.
So it can be very quiet and very domestic, but there's an alien.
Yeah.
You know. So
it adds a layer of comedy immediately to that. Because if an alien is having a straight conversation, it's funny anyway. It's an alien.
And we did think at the start about like, shall we go back and forth? And I just thought, no, you can do that on TV, but in the comic it can just be a mess. You know.
So the problem with having a character on TV that's always an alien is, from a production standpoint, it's incredibly expensive. And also on TV, the way that audiences connect with characters is through the actor playing them. And so it was clear right away that an actor had to play Harry. And then it's like, okay, well then how do you remind the audience that this actor is an alien? So we came up with the reflection thing, where for the audience, we see his reflection in the mirror, like, yeah, it's funny seeing Harry sort of sniff the kidney, whatever it is. It's funnier to see an alien do it, so you try to do those mirror reflections as part of it. But yeah, that was a difficult thing. And then the logic behind him transforming, it was simple in the comic in a very smart way, where you see him as an alien, but you know he's putting out an energy of some sorts that people see him as a human and things, right?
Yeah.
This is a little different because we see him transform, and then getting around the logic of Max seeing him and finding the right verbiage to explain, well, 1 in a million can see through my molecular transformation. I think the audiences are pretty savvy, and they sort of get on board and they make certain buys and understand it. In the pilot, when we were getting those questions, wait, how can Max see him? We would always use the example of, well, when David Bruce Banner turns into the Incredible Hulk, why do his pants still fit him? You know, wouldn't those rip off as well? Shouldn't he be naked? You know, the audience sort of goes, yeah, he needs pants, so we got it. You know, it's a little bit like that.
It's a whole quantum leap thing that kids can see.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. I love that show. I love quantum leap. Yeah, that's right.
How much of Harry's backstory will really see in the series itself, and will we learn more pieces of his secret mission that he has coming here?
We'll see both. I mean, we'll see. We'll trickle out some information about his backstory as the season goes on, and we'll find out. Yeah, we're creating a mythology about his people, whether they've been here before, whether they haven't been here before, what are they up to, why they're doing what they're here to do, and that will play out. That's part of the first season. First season human arc is this murder in town of St. Hodges that is a problem whether this alien comes in or not. And the alien arc is that. Harry's on a mission. He's got to find this thing to do this device and complete his mission. All the while, he's slowly sort of learning more about these humans. And you ask the question, you know, will he get to a point where he's human enough where he doesn't want to complete his mission. So that's sort of the arc for that, and that'll play out for the first season.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming, taking the time.
Sit here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
We are gathered here today. Feels like one of those meetings. Like,
Very good documentary.
Yeah.
You know, narration.
all right. What's going on?
You know, so you have a background with a lot of drama-based projects, lots of historical-based projects, and then you have this. So how jarring or non-jarring was that to kind of be placed in this world?
It was refreshing as hell. There's a freedom to this project that I personally haven't experienced since. Wow, I don't know. I'd have to probably go back to my theater days. This jumped out to me immediately because it was so unique, and I felt like Sheriff Mike was such a underrepresented character for on television. I don't know if there's ever been a black character like him on television. I kind of see him, as I've told other people, I see him as kind of a mashup of Richard Pryor and John Wayne. You know what I mean? So that's the needle I'm trying to thread, you know, with my performance. But that's how I kind of see him, and I think that he's probably one of my favorite characters I've ever been able to portray ever, actually. And we've only done the pilot, but I've read 102 and 103, and there's I like this guy. I like him. He's not always likable, but you know, with other projects I've been on, I've always tended to be the nice guy, the goody two shoes of sorts, and so to be able to step out of that realm and I don't know, not have any rules regarding how he can be is nice. I enjoy it.
For the first time you all came together to shoot the pilot, be it for a table read or a rehearsal, what were the most surprising things that your fellow cast members brought to the equation to bounce off your character?
Yeah, everybody was so good. I think that when we did our first table read, it was better than when I read it in my head. Also, you know, everybody's performance is so kind of spot on for these characters. I mean, Alan, one of the hardest parts with shooting this pilot with him was not laughing. You know what I mean? Like, some of his mannerisms and the things that he does, and there was a lot of spontaneity as well, you know, like in the scene in the morgue where, you know, I'm sitting there and I fold my arms and he's like, he killed himself, and I'm like, well, why would he do that? And he just like mimicked what I was doing, you know what I mean? We didn't rehearse it or anything, but then he kind of shook his head a little bit. I don't know, I wasn't here. And I was just like, in the moment, you know, I'm glad they didn't have my coverage because I was cracking up because there's so many, the subtle little things that he does that make Harry feel alien are just brilliant. You know, he's a unique talent and giving a unique performance with a unique character, and it all works. Like I said on stage, we're all just the right amount of weird. You know, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the background for Sheriff Mike?
Let me see. Based on how much I know and how much I know I can say, he is not originally from Colorado. He, from what I understand, became sheriff probably within the last year and a half, and was working as an officer before then, and I hope I'm getting this right. If I'm getting this wrong, someone I'm sure will say so. But that sheriff, something happened to the previous sheriff. I don't know if we're going to get into that, but he ran for sheriff and basically, I think, threatened everyone to vote for him. That's how he ended up kind of getting the job. And I think people feel safe with him because of his bravado of sorts. And I think he's deeply suspicious of everyone. I think that he doesn't trust anyone. Not his deputy, not Harry, not anybody. I think he thinks everyone's up to something. It's just a matter of time before you figure out what it is.
Is everybody up to something?
Are we? Yeah, everybody got a cemetery in their closet. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Everybody knows where the bodies are buried. No, I think some people are clearly up to something. But I think what's cool about this particular project is that the audience knows more than we do. It's not too often where the characters on the show are less informed than what the audience. The audience knows who Harry is. They know why he's here. They know he's an alien. And what I think is great about the grounding of it in the real world is it doesn't matter how weird someone is, no one would ever suspect they're an alien. So all of the town people are well within the parameters of reality to just see him as being weird or odd. Maybe he's on the spectrum. Maybe we just don't understand him. But you guys, the audience, know that no, actually, he's a psychopathic alien hell-bent on destroying all of humanity. You know, which I think gives an interesting place to watch the show from. And the thing I also really like about it, and you'll see in the future episodes, is watching Harry and the people here in the town get pigeonholed in these situations where you think to yourself, oh God, how is this going to play out? How are they going to... But we always find a way that is plausible to bring everything to a resolution, you know. I like to use the Breaking Bad comparison in sorts with that, because there were so many times watching that show that I was just like, oh my God, how is this going to fucking play out? Oh geez, oh geez. And then something would happen, none of the things that I expected to happen, but something would happen that somehow shifted the dynamics of that moment, and there was never a moment there that I was like, man, that's some bullshit. That wouldn't happen, man. And hopefully that's what I feel like people will feel when it comes to this. We're going to create some tense moments, but they work themselves out in a way that, or don't. Maybe they don't work out, actually, but it resolves itself in a way that feels believable and organic and plausible.
Did this project shift your thinking on what sci-fi as a genre is? And also, you have a lot of deep history in sci-fi yourself.
Well, I love sci-fi. I mean, I'm a big superhero, you know, nerd, video gamer guy anyway. So, you know, first of all, I think they are aliens. I think we'd be insane to think that there aren't aliens somewhere out there. There's just, mathematically speaking, there's too many possibilities for it to exist. But, you know, I think the thing that keeps us separated is interstellar travel, intergalactic travel, the amount of time that it would take to do this, the speed needed. Do you have the technology to protect your ship when traveling like that? You know, and that may be the only thing that keeps us from being able to connect. Because I think Alpha Centauri, the next closest star, is still like, I don't know, yeah, it's like 8 or 9 or 10 light years away from here. And that's traveling at 189,000 miles per second. You know, which we can't reach those speeds, so it'd be impossible for humans to make it to another star unless you can create something that moves faster than the speed of light, which we don't know, and or can create a wormhole or something that allows you to jump from one side to the other and not have to traverse that expansive space. But I will say this, if aliens do come here, we're fucked. Because that means they've mastered all of that. That means that they have an understanding of technology that is far beyond all of ours, and no one ever shows up on your doorstep to give you a better life. You know what I mean? So if they do come, yeah, we're done. We're done. It's over. Thank God there's only one Harry.
So
for now.
So if aliens did show up and showed up on set, and either you or one of your castmates could get abducted, who would I send? Yourself, or would you give someone else?
I ain't going with them. Are you kidding me? I'd be like, nah, you want that guy over there. Who would I send? Oh man, I don't want to say who I would send.
We won't tell anyone, we promise.
Yeah, microphones and cameras. We won't say a word. It's just a secret. I don't know. I don't know that I'd send anyone from our cast. I can think of a few people on Earth I'd like to send with them, but no, nobody from the cast. I'm going to keep everybody from the cast. We're a good group. We're a good group. I like everybody. So, but if they were to show up, we're done. It's over. They're not coming all this way to say hi, and neither is Harry. He didn't come all this way to say hi. He came here with a mission, and I think that any alien that would be coming here with a mission. They didn't randomly find Earth. They know what's here. There's something they want or something they need, and if they can get here, there's nothing we're going to be able to do to stop them from doing what they want. So, you know, fingers crossed they don't show up, right?
Unless they come for great TV.
Yeah, and that's right. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, if you think about it, television signals have been beamed out in space for decades now. I don't know if they those radio waves or television waves move at the speed of light as well. So you're talking the turnaround between. I mean, we've been beaming signals out there since maybe the late 50s. So there's been enough time for some of the closer stars for a signal to make it there, them to receive it and send something back. But that's another thing about, connecting with aliens. It's just the time. Time is the dimension that, that space-time thing is a motherfucker, because, with the years, there's nothing you can do about it unless you can stop the aging process. But, unless aliens live for 1,000 years, I mean, if you can live to be 900 years old, yeah, you can get around pretty well, but that ain't us. And if motherfucker come in here is 900 years old, man.
Like looming.
What would Sheriff Mike's reaction be once he found out? Do you think would be his reaction?
I knew it. I knew it. God damn it! I knew it. I think that's exactly what he would say. I knew it, and all of you need to acknowledge that I knew it, and all of you need to say I was right. I think that's what Sheriff Mike would be coming in.
Would you have a beer with Sheriff Mike?
Would I have a beer with Sheriff Mike? Yeah, I would have a beer with Sheriff Mike. I probably find him pretty funny. I think that the thing about him is he doesn't see himself as a caricature. He sees himself as the saving grace for Patience, Colorado. But yeah, I would definitely love to sit down with him and hear some of his stories. He's an interesting cat. We got some fun stuff coming up for him, so I'm pretty excited about